Well, I'd like to talk with you about organizational design and structure. And there's several key issues here we want to deal with. Organizational structure or design is usually seen in some type of pyramid, starting with the CEO at the top and then working its way down 11, 20, 25 lines down to the frontline employee. But how is it put together? And the one question I always ask is which thing's the servant, the strategy or the structure? And the answer is the strategy controls things. So what are you up to? Once you have chosen your strategy, then you can create the structure and the culture that supports the strategy. If you're not sure what we mean by strategy, the generic strategies are that your business is engaged in cost leadership or low cost, differentiation, charging something special for an added quality, or in a narrow target, looking at cost or differentiation. Often there is another one out here on the side, and it would be called niche. But that's really being broken down here by narrow targets. So cost, leadership, differentiation, these are the big strategies. And then, of course, we have strategies about global or not global, okay, to expand or not. And we have other strategies. So there are a pyramid of strategies, but I'm introducing the generic strategies just to set the scene here. So structure and culture should be related, and leadership should be related to the strategy and the structure and the culture as well. Now, at the lower end of things are the foundational terms. In other words, how are you going to, once you try to figure out what your strategy is for your entire organization, which could be small, medium, or large, then how are you going to break down the work inside that? How are you going to specialize the work? Are you going to break it down into smaller departments? How long is your chain of command, flat or tall? What's the span of control, short or broad? Are you centralized or decentralized? And how formal is all of this? And there are a number of slides, and your book does a nice job of following this through. I'm skipping through this to go on to other material. The heart of what I want to pick at is the two pure organizational designs. And those are the functional and the divisional. The functional and the divisional. These are the pure forms. Now there's variations on these themes, but these are the two approaches for the organization structure. And I want to give you an example of those. Here is the functional design. And I'll bring this out just a little bit as we talk. And so here we have, it was easier said than done. Here we have the CEO at the top, and we're always looking at just the first two lines. If you dig further down into the organization chart, beyond the second line, then you're just repeating. You're going to see some of the repeating titles. So here's a functional design. These are functions: to finance, to operate, to market, to staff. These are functions. The College of Business is set up with functions: accounting, economics, finance, management, marketing, information systems. These are functions. I don't know how to tell you to any other way, but for you to learn that these terms represent functions. And so the functional form, one I always like to try to throw into the functional form is purchasing, because I think that's an important one. The divisional is a completely different organizational structure, and it is not in its second line set up by functions. Notice how this is different here. The second line, which is what we're looking at to define this, is made up of vice president. Instead of finance, it's vice president of a product. For instance, Procter & Gamble might be women's cosmetics. That might be the product. Over here, this VP for another product might be home cleaning. Okay, the next one might be health, family health products. And so those would be a divisional structure by product. We could also have a divisional structure by customer. So Dell, so you have Mike Dell's the CEO, and down here the vice presidents here, again, they're not finance or purchasing or operations like a functional. but they're also not by product. If my example is by customer, so for Dell, it is the home customer, the small business, the educational buyer. That's really basically how they're set up. They're set up by customer base. Now also it could just be flat out a division. These are usually very large companies. My example is GM. So vice president, again, not functioning, not finance or marketing or accounting or purchasing, but it's vice president of GMC, vice president of Chevrolet, vice president of Cadillac. These are divisions, the Cadillac division. So it's a divisional structure. And a final one I would give you, like this would be 4, would be by geography. So a lot of times in service, it is vice president of East, South, North. You do it by geography. Now notice once you get past the second line that these things all get similar. So someplace down here, downstream, is head of marketing. In a functional, it's at the top. It's centralized. But in the divisional, it's downstream. And so functional usually gives you the best economies of scale, and it's often the first organizational structure of an organization. The divisional gives you the opportunity for competition and individualizing and getting closer to the customer. They both have advantages. One is not superior to the other. Now I mentioned over here that these are pure forms, so the simple structures are functional and divisional, just those two. There are complex structures of matrix and hybrids. These are bastardizations of the pure forms. So to get to this slide, so the hybrid is like adding international to a functional one. So let's go back here. So if you had this and you had to market, to operate, to finance, and then you put international, that's a non sequitur. That's not on the same level. And so we're breaking this down. It's not functional anymore. It's functional with a thing added. And so that would be the hybrid, adding something like international to functional. A matrix has both the functional and the divisional pieces by having each employee having 2 bosses. So it's not a pyramid. It's not a design that looks like any of the other designs. So I'm going to pick a spot and get rid of this thing here. I'm going to pick a spot, and here's where I am, these pinch points. So let's say I worked in quality control and I was on project A, building a dam someplace. Or in NASA, it would be a spacecraft project. So I'd be on project 2018, and I'd be in quality control. I'd be right here. I'd have a quality control boss, and I'd have a project manager boss. And so this is a matrix organization. You have both the X and the Y axis. Now, one question I would ask is, which organization design would fit, or you're most likely to see in a large city hospital, a neighborhood coffee shop, a small private college, or the county clerk's office? And so this is sort of like an expectation guess rather than what's the best one, because the best one would be what fits the strategy. We do have a slide that looks at some of those divisions by product, by geography, and by a customer or market. And here we have a matrix structure in a later slide for the College of Business. So you have functions on the left-hand side, and then you have divisions on the y-axis, on the x-axis. So the y-axis functions, the x-axis divisions. I hope this is helpful.